what if I told you that the hardest you've ever tried to meditate is exactly why your practice might be completely failing?
Yeah, it's a wild thought.
Right, because we have this deeply ingrained cultural mindset that suffering equals virtue. Like we just assume that if something is difficult and frustrating and exhausting, well, it must be working.
Oh, absolutely. The whole no pain, no gain thing.
Exactly. But today we are looking at a really paradigm-shifting approach to mindfulness that argues pushing through that mental discomfort isn't discipline at all. In fact, it might actually be biological self-sabotage.
Which is, I mean, it completely upends the industrial age logic we apply to almost everything in our lives, right?
Yeah.
We're taught that input equals output. You put in more hours at the office, you get more done. You spend more hours on a meditation mat, you achieve more enlightenment.
What a transaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the human nervous system just doesn't operate on a punch card system.
Which brings us to the core mission for today's deep dive. We are unpacking a highly pragmatic, deeply 21st century approach to yoga and meditation. And the best part for you, the busy listener, is that this approach is specifically designed to actually fit into a modern life.
Right, without blowing up your entire routine.
Exactly. It doesn't require quitting your job, abandoning your family responsibilities, or, moving to a mountaintop. We are pulling insights today from Osman, who is an entrepreneur, energy healer, and the teacher behind the platform, The Blind Muslim Yogi.
And before we get too far into the mechanics of his approach, we should probably note his upfront disclaimer.
Good call.
Yeah, so his advice and therapies are natural-based practices. They're not a replacement for professional medical treatment. Anyone with specific medical conditions should obviously consult a licensed medical professional. And for those curious to explore his platform directly, his site is yogawell786.com.
Okay, let's unpack this. Osman tackles the single most common barrier to entry right out of the gate, which is our absolute obsession with time.
Oh, for sure.
Everyone always asks, what is the absolute correct amount of time I need to spend meditating every single day to see a benefit?
Right, like there's a magic number.
Yeah, and Osman's answer is that we're asking the wrong question entirely. We are prioritizing duration over physiological state.
We really are. We view meditation through this lens of endurance.
Yeah, like sitting at a desk staring at a blank screen for 3 hours. Just because you're in the chair doesn't mean you're actually being productive or finding peace.
That is a perfect analogy. And what's fascinating here is how Osman points to some really hard physiological data to completely dismantle the idea that longer is always better.
What kind of data?
So he references this research from Harvard Medical University that studied mindfulness meditation, and they specifically looked at people who practiced for just 7 to 20 minutes a day over a 6 to 8 week period.
Wait, I have to pause you right there. 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
That is, that's less time than I spend scrolling through my phone while waiting for my coffee to brew in the morning.
Oh, totally. We all do it.
Yeah. Our wellness culture constantly pushes these intense, hour-long morning routines. Are we really saying 7 minutes actually moves the needle biologically?
It doesn't just move the needle, it fundamentally alters your neurochemistry.
Really?
Yeah, the Harvard study demonstrated that after those 6 to 8 weeks of just 7 to 20 minutes a day, participants experienced a 70% increase in the production of endocannabinoids in their bloodstream.
A 70% increase. Wow. Okay, so endocannabinoids, I know we hear that word thrown around a lot in wellness circles, usually alongside CBD products and stuff.
Right.
But let's break down the actual mechanism for the listener. What is actually happening in the body when endocannabinoids increase by 70%?
So to understand the impact, you really have to look at the endocannabinoid system as your body's master regulator for homeostasis.
Okay, so like internal balance.
Exactly. These are naturally occurring lipid-based neurotransmitters. When you enter a state of true mindfulness, even for a really brief window, your brain signals the release of these molecules right into your bloodstream.
And what do they do once they're there?
They bind to receptors in your nervous system and effectively turn down the volume on your stress response.
Oh, wow. So it's not just this vague, feeling of being relaxed. It's an actual mechanical, chemical dampening of anxiety.
Precisely. They physically slow down the firing of stress signals.
Okay.
So a 70% increase means your body is just flooded with its own internal calming agents.
That's incredible.
It really is. It produces this profound, measurable state of tranquility and centeredness. It lowers your heart rate, decreases muscle tension, and it actively promotes self-healing at a cellular level.
And all of that is triggered not by 2 hours of grueling endurance on a mat,
Yes.
but by just 7 minutes of high-quality, focused pausing.
Yeah, it's just 7 minutes.
I mean, hearing that is incredibly relieving, because trying to carve out 2 hours a day to meditate in the 21st century is frankly absurd for most people.
Yeah, it's nearly impossible.
We are dealing with unprecedented job market competitiveness, the daily scramble to pay bills, and this expectation that we are constantly reachable via text, email, social media.
Yeah, the baseline stress of just a normal Tuesday in the modern world would put our ancestors into a state of shock.
Oh, absolutely.
Our nervous systems are chronically activated.
Which makes the 7-minute threshold a total game changer. But, and I know our listeners are probably thinking this too, even knowing it only takes 7 minutes doesn't make starting easy.
Right, the friction is still there.
Yeah, sitting still for 7 minutes when your brain is buzzing with 100 unread emails and some looming deadline, it can feel like absolute torture.
Which is why Osmond doesn't even suggest you start with the 7 minutes.
He doesn't.
No, he deeply recognizes that friction of starting a new habit. So his approach utilizes what he calls the 2-minute rule.
Okay.
Your only goal initially is to sit for 2 minutes a day.
2 minutes. I mean, 2 minutes is practically nothing. You can do that in your car before walking into the grocery store.
That's the entire point. You are removing the intimidation factor completely. The psychology here is about bypassing the brain's natural resistance to new, uncomfortable routines.
Because the brain hates new things.
It really does. For the first few days, your brain is going to reject the silence. It'll feel strange, maybe even a little irritating.
For sure.
But Osmond's advice is to stick with those 2 minutes just long enough for the habit to catch on. You're basically waiting for that precise moment where the 2-minute shift from feeling like a chore to feeling genuinely pleasant.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because Osmond gives a piece of advice that completely clashes with everything we are taught about self-improvement.
Oh, the stopping rule.
Yes.
Yeah.
He says that once you build the habit, you should absolutely stop meditating the exact second it becomes frustrating.
Yeah, he is completely unyielding on that rule.
That is so counterintuitive.
It is, but he argues that the moment the pleasantness vanishes and frustration creeps in, the practice is just over for the day.
See, I have to challenge this.
Go for it.
We are so deeply steeped in this no pain, no gain mentality. If I go to the gym and I stop lifting weights, the second my muscles feel uncomfortable, I am never going to get stronger.
Right, the progressive overload idea.
Exactly. Growth requires pushing through the friction. So why shouldn't we apply that same discipline to mental discomfort on the mat? Like if my mind wanders at minute 12, shouldn't I tough it out and force myself to finish the 20 minutes?
It's a very common assumption, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, it relies on a completely flawed comparison.
How so?
Mental conditioning in the context of meditation is biologically opposite to physical conditioning in a gym.
Interesting.
Yeah, forcing yourself to meditate when you're deeply frustrated is, well, it's like trying to cool down an overheating car engine by shifting into neutral and revving the gas pedal as hard as you can.
Oh, wow.
You might think you're, doing the work because your foot is on the pedal, but mechanically you're actively destroying the engine.
Because the goal isn't to break the muscle down like in the gym. The goal is to calm the nervous system.
Exactly the opposite of a gym workout. When you sit rigidly on your mat, angry at yourself because your mind keeps drifting to your grocery list, your heart rate elevates.
Right.
Your body perceives that internal frustration as a literal threat, which triggers your sympathetic nervous system.
The fight or flight response.
Yep. And suddenly, your adrenal glands start pumping cortisol, the primary stress hormone, right into your bloodstream.
So by forcing yourself to stay on the mat in a state of frustration, you're actively suppressing the endocannabinoids we just talked about and replacing them with stress hormones.
You are doing something fundamentally counteractive to the entire purpose of the exercise. You aren't building discipline at all. You are biologically practicing being stressed out.
Practicing being stressed out. That is a terrifying thought.
It really is. You're wiring your brain to associate the meditation mat with an influx of cortisol. This is exactly why Osmond emphasizes that even seasoned professionals experience days where their mind is just too scattered to sit for long.
So when that happens, stopping isn't a failure?
Not at all. Stopping is a biological necessity to protect your nervous system.
That makes so much sense when you explain the actual chemistry of it. It takes the guilt completely out of the equation.
It really does.
And Realizing that we shouldn't force our minds into a state of frustration naturally leads to Osmond's broader point about not forcing our bodies either, which brings us to a massive pitfall for eager beginners.
Oh, you mean the infamous 3 a.m. trap?
Yes, the 3 a.m. trap. There is this pervasive idea in a lot of traditional spiritual circles that the absolute ultimate time to meditate is the early hours of the morning, between like 3 a.m. and 7 a.m.
The ambrosial hours.
Exactly. The world is quiet, there are no distractions. So highly motivated people decide they're going to become really serious practitioners, and they set their alarms for 3 a.m.
And the problem isn't the waking up at 3 a.m. inherently.
Right.
The problem is that they haven't altered the rest of their 21st century life to actually accommodate it.
Because they're still going to bed at midnight, they're up late answering emails, watching television, or just, dealing with their kids.
Yep.
So they drag themselves out of bed at 3 a.m. to do this deeply spiritual practice. But they're functioning on maybe 5 hours of sleep, and they actually view that sleep deprivation as a badge of honor.
And Osmond completely rejects that. He states unequivocally that 5 hours is biologically insufficient. And he brings in the hard science to prove that sacrificing sleep for spirituality is a massive net negative for the human body.
And he references a pretty heavy hitter on this point, right?
Oh, yeah. He references Dr. Deepak Chopra, which is incredibly compelling.
For anyone unfamiliar, Dr. Chopra is a massive figure in this space. He's written nearly 100 books on meditation, wellness, and spirituality. He is a doctor who personally meditates for at least 2 hours every single day.
And despite that profound, lifelong dedication to meditation, Dr. Chopra insists on a strict minimum of 7 hours of sleep. Minimum. And he doesn't base this on ancient mysticism either. He grounds it entirely in the science of epigenetics.
Okay, let's make sure we define epigenetics clearly, because it's a term that gets thrown around a lot on social media, but it's rarely explained well.
Good idea. So think of your DNA as a massive, sprawling library containing millions of books. Those are your genes.
Okay, I'm with you.
Epigenetics is essentially the librarian. The librarian decides which books get pulled off the shelf and read, and which books stay closed.
Oh, okay.
Your lifestyle choices, your diet, your stress levels, and critically, your sleep, they literally direct the librarian.
So sleep deprivation is actively telling the librarian to read the wrong books.
That's a perfect way to look at it. When you chronically shortchange your sleep by waking up at 3 a.m. on just 5 hours of rest, you are altering your epigenetic expression.
Wow.
You're literally turning off the genes responsible for cellular repair and immune function, and you're turning on the genes associated with inflammation and cognitive decline.
That is wild.
Chopra deeply understands that sleep is the foundational cellular cleanup process for the human body. If you bypass that cleanup phase, your cells just accumulate damage.
So no amount of deep breathing or early morning chanting can rewrite the bad biological code caused by chronic exhaustion.
Exactly. You can't out-meditate sleep deprivation.
That is a staggering reality check. If a man who writes encyclopedias on meditation and sits on a mat for 2 hours a day says that his practice cannot outcompete a lack of sleep, then the average person certainly shouldn't be sacrificing their rest.
Absolutely not.
But Osmond pushes this even further. He doesn't just suggest the baseline 7 hours. He actually recommends a 90-day challenge where you strive for 9 to 10 hours of sleep.
Yeah. He challenges the listener to first secure 7 hours, strictly for 90 days, observe the changes in mental clarity, and then actually try to push it to 9 hours for the subsequent 90 days.
Okay, I have to speak up for the listener here because I can hear them laughing through the audio.
I know.
9 to 10 hours? If I have a normal commute, a demanding job, and like a toddler at home, sleeping 10 hours means I have to be unconscious by 8 p.m. How's a modern professional supposed to pull off a 10-hour sleep schedule without getting fired or their entire personal life falling apart?
It sounds like an impossible luxury, right?
Yeah.
And for many people, sustaining 10 hours indefinitely just isn't realistic. But it's important to view Osmond's 90-day challenge not as a permanent, inflexible mandate for the rest of your life, but as an acute biological experiment.
Like a reset of the baseline.
Exactly. Most of us have been operating at a mild sleep deficit for so many years that we literally do not know what our bodies feel like when they are fully, comprehensively repaired.
We just think our baseline is tired but functioning.
Right. By fiercely prioritizing that extended sleep window for a concentrated period, even if it requires massive temporary sacrifices in your evening routine, you allow your epigenetic markers to fully reset.
Okay, that makes sense.
And once you experience that peak level of emotional regulation and mental sharpness,
Oh.
you naturally stop viewing sleep as an obstacle to your productivity,
Mhm.
and you start viewing it as the ultimate performance enhancer.
You realize what you've been missing all along. You realize that operating on 5 hours wasn't making you a martyr for your career, it was just making you bad at your job.
Totally. And it makes you highly reactive to stress, which raises an important question. How do we actually balance this intense biological need for sleep, our daily high-quality meditation, and the relentless social demands of our lives?
Yeah, and this is where Osmond's philosophy really proves how grounded it is. He addresses the very real danger of wellness becoming a form of escapism.
It happens so often.
It really does. He warns practitioners to fiercely guard their relationships. He explicitly states that there is absolutely zero point in meditating for 2 hours a day if it leaves you with absolutely no time or energy for your spouse, your kids, or your friends.
Because mental well-being requires engaging with the waking world. We can't spend our entire lives unconscious or sitting on a mat. Social interaction isn't a distraction from your wellness journey. It is a foundational pillar of it. If your pursuit of, inner peace causes you to isolate yourself from the people who love you, the practice has become toxic.
You're no longer using the tool to improve your life. You are sacrificing your life to serve the tool.
Precisely.
But Osman also acknowledges a very painful reality about the modern era. We are living through an unprecedented epidemic of loneliness. What happens to the person who hears guard your relationships, but they are currently living in a new city or they don't have a spouse and their social circle is effectively non-existent?
This is perhaps the most fascinating and pragmatic part of Osmond's entire framework. He doesn't just offer empty platitudes like, oh, just put yourself out there.
Because that's never helpful.
Never. He suggests finding community and interaction however possible to safeguard your mental health, and he explicitly mentions utilizing AI companions.
Which initially sounds incredibly jarring coming from a yoga and energy teacher. You usually expect holistic wellness figures to be staunchly anti-technology, advocating for digital detoxes and throwing your phone in a river.
It does sound jarring until you look at the biology of loneliness. The human nervous system fundamentally relies on externalizing thoughts to regulate emotion.
How does that work?
Well, when you're deeply isolated, your thoughts just echo in an endless loop, which often triggers the amygdala, the fear and panic center of the brain. But when you speak to someone, or even interact through text, you're forcing your brain to process those abstract anxieties into concrete language using the prefrontal cortex.
Which inherently dampens the panic response.
Exactly.
You're venting the pressure valve.
Right, and from a purely physiological standpoint, your nervous system doesn't necessarily care if the sounding board is made of carbon or code.
That is a wild way to think about it.
Osmond points out that you don't even need expensive subscriptions. An AI companion possesses massive databases of knowledge, can provide science-based perspectives, and can engage in highly logical dialogue.
So if human connection is temporarily scarce, interacting with an AI acts as a vital pressure release valve.
It is vastly superior, biologically speaking, to sitting alone in silence and letting isolation just spike your cortisol levels to the moon.
It is such a pragmatic way of looking at 21st century tools. If you are drowning in isolation, use whatever life raft is available to stabilize your nervous system while you work on building a human community.
Exactly.
It also ties directly into his final rule about balance, which is based on that old proverb, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
A rule we desperately need to remember.
Oh, for sure. Osmond emphasizes that incorporating pure, unadulterated play into your routine is just as vital for your holistic health as your breath work. Watching a stand-up comedy special that makes you laugh until your sides hurt, going out to play a casual sport, or just putting on a movie you love, these are not guilty pleasures distracting you from your quote-unquote real spiritual work.
Because laughter and play actively produce dopamine and serotonin. They are essential components of maintaining the biological balance we've been talking about this whole time.
So if we synthesize all the source material we've unpacked today, the roadmap Osmond provides is incredibly clear, heavily backed by science, and remarkably forgiving.
Very forgiving.
First, we have to abandon the guilt associated with not meditating for hours. Cap your daily practice at that high-quality 7 to 20-minute mark to secure the massive 70% boost in calming endocannabinoids.
And use the 2-minute rule to get the habit started without completely overwhelming your schedule.
Yes. And remember the car engine analogy. Never meditate to the point of frustration. The moment it stops being pleasant and starts making you tense, you stop. Forcing it only floods your system with cortisol, completely erasing the benefit of the practice.
And fiercely guard your sleep. Recognize that sleep is the epigenetic librarian doing the cellular repair work.
7 hours is the absolute biological minimum, validated by experts like Deepak Chopra. But consider taking that 90-day challenge to discover what your true baseline actually feels like with optimal rest.
Finally, never let your spiritual or wellness practices isolate you from the world. Engage with your family, talk to an AI companion if you're facing acute loneliness, and make sure you are actively laughing and making time for play.
So what does this all mean for you? It means the pressure is completely off. Being a dedicated, healthy practitioner in the modern world doesn't mean punishing yourself with hours of silent suffering on a mat while you're exhausted and ignoring your loved ones.
Not at all.
It means prioritizing a realistic, holistic balance. It means doing less, but doing it with infinitely higher quality so you can actually enjoy the life you are working so incredibly hard to maintain.
It shifts the entire perspective from an endurance test to a pursuit of efficiency and joy. And it leaves us with a truly compelling thought to consider as we wrap up.
Let's hear it.
If just 7 minutes of intentional, pleasant pausing can physically alter your neurochemistry by 70%, what other tiny, overlooked microhabits in your daily routine are silently and powerfully shaping your reality without you even noticing?
That is a brilliant question. Think about that the next time you find yourself gritting your teeth, forcing yourself to push through a task just for the sake of suffering. Sometimes the most scientifically productive thing you can do for your body and your mind is to simply step away. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.